I used to think good web design was all about taste, maybe some nice fonts, pretty colors. Then one of those pretty sites that I made for a client completely tanked their sales. And that actually messed with me. So I went digging to figure out what went wrong. And that search basically shaped the next 11 years of my career. Turns out the most important decisions don't start with design. They start with people, specifically how people's brains work. So in this video, I'm going to share 3 psychology principles that you need to build websites that look amazing, feel expensive, and actually help your clients. Right now, your brain is processing the feeling of your feet and your shoes, the temperature of the room that you're in, that hum in the background. And I bet you forgot your feet even existed until I said something. That's weird, right? That's because about 1 billion bits of information are hitting our senses every single second. And out of that 1 billion, we're only aware of 10. So most of what we're processing is actually completely unconscious. That means that every single design decision that you make is making an impact on whoever is visiting the website, whether they realize it or not. So you have got to know how the hidden machinery of the brain works, all the psychology, or else the website is going to quietly turn people away and you're never going to know why. Here's the best way that I've found to think about it. Your brain isn't just one machine running one single program. It's more like 3 friends who care about very different things. The first friend only cares about survival. All it thinks about is danger and food and, well, you know. The next friend is the emotional one that cries in children's movies. All they care about is how that they feel. And the last friend is the smart one. They're all about logic and reason, the rational of the crew, if you will. But here's kind of the problem. We're taught to design for the user singular, but there's really no singular user. There are 3 friends looking at this site and 1 person, and each one needs something completely different. You can't leave out any of them, and the order that you speak to them is actually important because the first friend votes first, and they really just want to feel safe. Here's what happens when they don't. There is a gaming site called Gaming Bible that moved their mobile menu down to the bottom corner, which on paper is actually better UX because it's closer to the thumb zone on your mobile device. But they had to move it back because no one could find it when they set it live. People actually show up to your website with a blueprint that's already kind of in their head, right? Like logos at the top left, navigation is somewhere close to that, and footer is on the bottom. Psychologists call these mental models. And those models were built from every single website that the visitor has ever been on. And the first friend uses that blueprint so it doesn't have to think too hard. So if something isn't where the blueprint says that it should be on the website, the first friend doesn't go looking. They just see it and say, this is different, and they leave altogether. So here's principle number 1, and it actually pains me to say this, but if you want that first friend to feel safe and stick around, you can't be super creative. The layout has to fit the pattern that most people are expecting. But here's where things get sticky with friend number 2. They sometimes get into fights with that first friend because the first friend wants safety. They want everything to be business as usual. But the second friend wants excitement. It craves the feeling of those little dopamine hits that we've all kind of grown accustomed to because of social media. So if you let that first friend make every decision on your website, everything gets so safe and so predictable that the second friend just gets bored and bounces. So here's how both friends get along. You keep the structure predictable, but inside that structure, you break tiny patterns on purpose. When something small happens that the brain didn't necessarily predict, and it's pleasant instead of jarring, right? You get that little dopamine hit the second friend is actually looking for. Designers call that sweet spot Maya, most advanced yet acceptable. One of the best ways to do this is with micro interactions, little bitty pieces of animation that aren't quite what you'd expect, but aren't over the top, like a button that reacts to your hover in a way that buttons don't normally react, or in maybe an image that scales ever so slightly as you scroll past it. Again, it doesn't have to be, and really shouldn't be, drastic. That scares friend number 1 off. It just has to be interesting enough that friend number 2 thinks it's exciting. But I know After working with a lot of different website builders and even AI, it's not always easy to make simple changes to the design or layout or even animations. Like you increase the font size and all of a sudden the layout breaks. So that simple fix ends up being not nearly as simple as you thought it was. That's why I love working with Showit. It's one of the only builders that's truly drag and drop, not just a series of columns that you can kind of put things into that tend to get squished if you put too much or something is too big. You can sign up for a free 14-day trial, and if you use the link in the first line of the description, you'll get your first month for free. And in case you're wondering, it's not an affiliate link. Finally, the last friend. You know how sometimes you want something and before you buy it, you kind of go looking for reasons that make it the smart choice? Like you tell yourself, this is gonna last forever. It's gonna save us tons of time. It's an investment for our family. It's got tons of great reviews. That's actually the third friend at work. Friend 1 and 2 already made the decision, but friend 3 is there to help justify it. So your job is to hand that friend every reason it needs to feel good about saying yes. Easy enough, right? Except there's a catch. The human brain can only hold about 3 or 4 things in mind at once. So picture a visitor scrolling your web page. They see things that they want to buy, and then they see, oh, there's free shipping, there's free returns, a warranty, a loyalty program. The brain's already dropped half of the reasons to buy before they hit the bottom of the page. So what do? You group. Think about a phone number. 10 digits is way past the 3 or 4 limit, but you actually don't have to remember all 10 at the same time. You remember them in 3 little chunks. Okay, maybe none of us memorize phone numbers anymore, but you get the idea. You use the same trick on your website. A perfect example is pricing tiers. When you write out everything that somebody gets in a real long list and then do that multiple times over different tiers, good luck getting anyone to know the difference between the most expensive option and the least expensive. Instead, split up all the features into categories and don't just list everything out over and over again. Show the difference between them rather than having to repeat it over and over again. So this pro tier or the diamond tier is everything in basic plus all of these features. That keeps them from having to pick the needle out of the haystack every time they're comparing one option versus the other. But here's the thing, knowing all this makes you worth $10,000. It doesn't hand you someone willing to pay that. That's a whole different problem, and it's actually the one that I get asked about more than anything else. So I made a video with 14 different ways to find web design clients. Check that out next and go get some clients to use all this cool psychology on. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, if you don't quit, you win.